Hello, everybody. You could call me Hunch, and this is Little Hunch. If you're new here, welcome. I normally talk about stacks. I still like stacks, but honestly, I think the top, I don't know if you want to call it management. It's kind of like a decentralized protocol, but the people steering the ships, the captains. I really just, I don't think they have any idea what they're doing. I'll give you some examples today, but we're going to be talking about, what I think you should be doing right now. What I think the play is and where we go from here. So anyway, what I think we start with is we talk about a meme, right? I think there's hundreds of thousands of memes. I think they're nearly impossible. I do believe that there's one meme that will outperform all of them, and that's SPX 6900. I do think they have a mission, and let me move my camera up here. If you see right down here, you can see there's massive buys and sells. I do think there's a lot of liquidity here. I do think that it has staying power. It's been around for a while now. 2024, it's been at least a year, if not more. Wow, when did this come out? September 2024. Ran up to $1 billion. I do think this is going to have another run like Doge. I do like the chart. I do think there's a lot of people that step in and buy when they're sellers. I do even think that institutions do have exposure to memes. And if I had to guess, I would bet this is one of them, right? I don't think it's memes on Bitcoin. I don't think it's, Dog or any of the, Gizmo or any of those other things, right? Billy the Cat or whatever those things are. I don't think those are that great. I do think memes on ETH and Solana are more established. If I were you, I would not have a whole bag full of memes. I would just have a bag full of Bitcoin, probably Solana, ETH, and then I like stacks, even though it's still getting wrecked. I do think that they have the right technical setup, which in terms of their technology. So that is the only thing that might save them at this point. But if I were everybody else and not myself, I would be playing just Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, right? Maybe. Obviously, mostly Bitcoin. If you did just do Bitcoin, you'd be outperforming everything nonstop all the time. This cycle, that wasn't the same for last cycle, so it got a lot of people, but even myself, who's been in this market a long time, confused. So what about SPX that I like, right? I tweeted the other day, what's the official Twitter of SPX? It got deleted, right? And when I started tweeting about it, I had this whole army basically come after me and say, you're the official Twitter. So everybody in this community is the official Twitter. I do think they have a good mission to flip the stock market. I do think, with the worsening wealth gap, the debt to GDP, the debt, people have given up. Even people who have done really well, such as people who have been in the market for a long time, and who were just Bitcoin maxis, are kind of fed up because inflation is wildly out of control. Things like daycare, even for my son, are wildly out of control. So I do think, people have a mission. This reminds me a lot of GameStop, reminds me a lot of Doge, except, this cycle has been a lot of the stock market, right? If you think about MicroStrategy, if you think about some of the ETH treasury companies, those have been going up. And I do think this is aligned with that, right? Flipping the stock market, it's a mission. I don't think there's a lot of utility coins that are doing things. I think Stacks is a utility coin. But getting obliterated, right? I think Solana is a utility token, right? For their stable coins, to use that L1 base layer. But there's not a whole lot going on, right? XRP is kind of losing its flair. It's at 168 billion. How much upside is that? I think there's just tremendous upside in this, around 1 billion to 2 billion, which happens to be where Stacks is, but also this meme. Again, if I were just a lay person, I would just be in Bitcoin, Solana, ETH, maybe, right? Those have shown to have staying power. But, to each his own. I do think having an exposure to a $1 billion market cap, if it does go to trillions to flip the stock market, you're going to do very well. Not financial advice. Another thing is the users, and I don't know how accurate this data is. You can look them up on DexScreen or do various things, is the holders are growing, right? The movement is growing. There's telegrams, there's Twitter groups, it's all over YouTube, it's all over, Instagram, I'm sure it's all over social media. The movement is growing. It's a bit of a movement, kind of like GameStop, right? GameStop never had an official Twitter that was promoting these things. It just kind of was from the ground up, right? A ground up movement. Now, in terms of Stacks, right? I think Stacks is doing a poor job, and this is, obviously this is just funny, right? But I wrote, if Stacks wants users, they should take a portion of their endowment and buy SPX as a reserve currency. That's real marketing. Stop with the nonsense, right? So Stacks Foundation is doing things with the groups like Zeely to get users, doing rewards to get users. Honestly, I just think they're terrible degens. I think they should, I think they'd have better marketing if they put, $1 million in SPX and said, we support it. We're going to port that over there. We're going to put it, we're going to put some funds into a liquidity pool, and we're going to allow you to trade SPX with SBTC or Stacks, right? I think that is better marketing than 99% of what they're doing. I still like Stacks, right? Because if you watch these videos, a lot of these L2s aren't actually going to increase the fee structure of the Bitcoin blockchain, right? And if you don't do that, the miners are going to get kind of fed up with you, right? They need to increase their fees over time because there's less Bitcoin rewards. That's not for a while, but the important thing in theory is that you should have things that settle directly on Bitcoin, right? And Stacks does hash or settle on Bitcoin. It does increase the security budget, which is what ETH people talk about all the time is, where's, these Bitcoin blocks are empty. Stacks is a way to solve that. All these L2s don't really increase the fee structures of Bitcoin that much. So I do like Stacks from a theoretical standpoint, and I do think I'm not missing anything, right? I mean, Satoshi himself said, there should be chains around Bitcoin utilizing their hash power. It does settle on Bitcoin. They have increased block speed tremendously from when I was first in there, from a 10-minute block to a 20-minute block to, a 1 to 2 second block time, maybe 2 to 4 second, depending how crowded the chain is. They have SBTC, which is their kind of, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but it's the representation of Bitcoin, kind of like WBTC on ETH. Supposedly it's more decentralized, right, with all these signers, and hopefully over time it becomes more decentralized. Okay. And I just think it is doing it the right way, but it may take a cycle or two, or it may fail if management or the leaders, I don't want to say management, it is a decentralized system, or if the leaders don't get it together, right? I honestly think Stacks would explode if they went to a Korean exchange or a Chinese exchange or some other exchange and say, hey, look, let's give out loans from Zest Protocol on top of Stacks. We'll integrate with your UI as a centralized exchange, and people can take out loans like Morpho. Binance has invested in Zest. Tim Draper has invested in Zest. These connections should be able to get us on an exchange, but for some reason it's not panning out. It just seems like they're dumping on us constantly, right? Like Gemini, the Winklevoss twins, invested in the Stacks protocol, and you still can't trade Stacks on Gemini. So I don't necessarily know what's going on here. So for this cycle, I would say, stay away from Stacks if you had at this point, and just go Solana, Bitcoin, maybe Doge, ETH. Oh, what do you need? What do you want? Oh, you want some water. Oh, you want some water. Okay, water. Yeah, I got you. I know your hand signs now. Anyway, so that's what I think. So I don't think you should really be trading. I don't think you should really overthink it. I think Bitcoin, some of the top L1s, right? And then maybe a meme. You pick your meme, whether it's DOG or SPX or Doge, right? I think, there are going to be winners in the meme space. I think you just got to pick one, give a decent size, and hopefully it runs with these parabolic moves that should come if this is the end of the cycle. It all depends on what you believe in, right? If we're having another blow off top, or if we're just going to slowly grind up to 200, 300, 400. Even if we do that, I do think some memes will do really well. So that's my thoughts on Stacks, the market, everything. It's been a hard cycle, I think, for me. I think for everybody. If you're still here and you survived, wow, I'm proud of you. But it's brutal. Crypto is not for the lighthearted. You can lose a lot of money. You can make a lot of money. Not financial advice, right? See, I made a lot of money. I bought my son a Formula One car, right? Crazy. Crazy. Anyway, you could call me Hunch. Have a great day. Godspeed and good luck. Oh, I know. It's time to play.